You're listening to REIA Radio, the nationally trusted name in real estate investing. We dig deep to discover investors' why in real estate. If you want to skip all the BS and get in investors' heads, you're in the right spot. Be one of the thousands to check out REIARadio.com.
So, why did I fail? I lacked education. I lacked the skill set to take advantage of the opportunity that came to me. I would like to buy this from you. Do you want to sell it? And he said, absolutely I do. And I was like, oh God, what do I do now? The last thing you want to do is do bridge debt and then have the interest rates rise and then have something go wrong in the project. Now you're caught with your pants down and you're on the hook for a lot of money.
This episode is brought to you by PropStream.com.
PropStream is one of the most trusted real estate data software solutions. PropStream benefits all real estate professionals. You can find properties and contact homeowners on the go with PropStream's mobile app. We offer free academy courses tailored to real estate investors and agents. Take advantage of our live webinar demos to learn the software and scale your real estate business. Visit www.propstream.com and sign up for your 7-day free trial to get more leads and grow your business.
So I'm going to give you guys a little input to Wyatt Simon. He's the founder and managing partner of Full Circle Equity, has an impressive background in real estate investment. He began his career at Thrasher Foundations. Funny thing is that we both worked there at one point in our lives. But it's a company with annual gross over $100 million and quickly became their top salesman. Wyatt then co-founded Full Circle Real Estate, acquiring more than 50 houses within the first 2 years. By the age of 27, Wyatt achieved financial freedom after 4 years of dedicated investing. Currently, he manages 206 units worth over $15 million and leads Full Circle Property Management, overseeing his growing portfolio. Wyatt's expertise has been featured in various international platforms and many podcasts, stage presentations. I'm sorry that we had to bring you down to this level right here. But it is an attentive crew. Make a point to write down your questions. And one thing we ask for, Wyatt comes up, if you have questions, please come to one of the two mics here so we can get it, because we have a live stream. Plus, we might use this for a future podcast, but that way we can hear your questions, and then he'll point at you when we get you on, and that way we'll make sure the mics are turned on. So, without any further ado, let's give a roaring applause for Wyatt Simon.
All right, well, how's everybody doing? I gotta say, it's surreal being here. I remember being here 4.5 years ago when I moved here, and I was sitting at a table learning as much as I could from the speakers, and it's just surreal. I'm grateful to be here in front of all of you, and I hope that you can learn something from me. If not, there's drinks and have a good time, okay? So tonight we're going to talk about how to analyze and find multifamily deals, so let's get started. All right, so let's start off with why this guy Ted gave me a very generous intro, but just a little bit about my experience. So I did buy over 50 houses in 2 years. I purchased over 6 multifamily deals. I have raised over $1.5 million last year alone. And I currently own and operate a portfolio of over $16 million in real estate. And the best thing about it is I was able to reach financial independence and leave my W-2 job. Even though Thrasher was great, it's fun doing this now. So my goal again is to do this so that I can help others. This speech is so that you can speed you up on your investor journey. I'm going to put in here as much possible as that I can so that you can learn, and then just take it for what you will. This is what's worked for me as a 28-year-old. So maybe there's something you disagree with or something else that you do, but just take it for what you will. This is the results that I've had so far. Okay, a little bit of background about me. So I grew up in Colorado. I enjoyed sports. I was, you can see me there below the rim doing a layup there. I moved here because the only place that gave me a scholarship was Doane College. So you can again see me, I'm the tall guy on the right. Graduated with a business administration degree, and then moved to Omaha, married that beautiful girl, Shelby, right there. So thank you for bringing me here. And then started working for Thrasher. As Ted said, ended up selling over $5 million of foundation repair and bought over $8 million of real estate while I was doing this on the side. So that was my second job, was buying real estate, like I'm sure a lot of everyone here, right? So I'll say this, that the Rocky cutscene, what a lot of people don't talk about is the stage to get here. A lot of people see the public victories, but they don't see the private victories. It takes a lot of work outside of work during the casual times to get to a point where you can buy real estate and do it well and get good deals, right? Good deals don't just walk up to you every day, right? So when I was working at Thrasher, I was coming to meetups. Every single meetup that I could, I was coming to. I was surrounding myself with people that were investors and trying to go to coffees with people to learn, because I knew that I didn't know a lot, but I wanted to get around the people that were doing it so I could pick up as much as I could, right? I was listening to podcasts and audiobooks. I'll share with you some resources that I would definitely recommend. Those are free resources. And then eventually I got into coaching, which greatly helped speed up my journey. Another great way, again, these are all things to help speed up your investor journey so you can get to where you want to go. All right. Just a little bit of background about how I got here. So the first thing that I wanted to do is I bought a duplex. I lived in one side and ran out the other. We all know what house hacking is. It took me 6 months to find it. I overpaid for it, but I was able to live for free. And so if you're not started yet and you don't have a family, or even if you do, the best thing to do is to do exactly that. Buy a duplex, buy a fourplex, and live for free if you can. From there, I heard of this little thing called BRRRR. So who knows what BRRRR stands for? Who's confident enough to say it? All right. You got it. Yep. Buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. And the reason why that's so important is because I was a 22-year-old that had no money. Right? So how am I supposed to buy all this real estate if it takes money to buy real estate? But I found out this strategy where you don't have to have a ton of money to buy real estate because you can just recycle it. So I bought this house for $100,000, and I'll back up. Before then, it was like, okay, well, you still have to have the $100,000. Well, I learned a little bit about financing, and so for 9 months, I was talking to my dad, and I said, Dad, I know you don't have a bunch of money, but you have worked all your life and you have your house paid off in cash. Would you take a home equity line of credit out on your house? And he's like, for what? I was like, to do this thing. And he's like, I don't understand it, no. And then my journey stopped and we can all go home. Right? No, I was persistent. And so I kept bugging him and I kept educating, and eventually I got him to understand it. And then eventually he was comfortable enough to take action. And so that was when we bought our first house. It ended up going well. We improved the value, got it rented. I gave him all of his money back, and then I picked up my first house for quote unquote free. And then the light bulb went off. I was like, man, I just got to do this a lot. And so then it was smooth sailing. No. Then I bought this beautiful purple palace. That's a Google image because I didn't take a picture of it. But so it's, yeah. But anyways, so then I bought this. This rehab took me 11 months. It was an absolute nightmare. Everything that went wrong. I got red tagged by the city. Bellevue's not fun to work with. Yada, yada, yada. Some of you guys know the story. If you don't, you might soon. So there you go. But anyways, not everything went well, but I just persisted through it. And my first year and a half, I bought 3 properties. So then things started to speed up as I started to gain more experience and get through the School of Hard Knocks, and then start building systems. And I will say I partnered with someone who complimented me very, very well. Sean French right there. Sean, give him a wave. That's Sean. He's amazing. After partnering with Sean, we bought over 50 houses in 2 years. We kept 30 of them, and then we wholesaled or flipped the rest. And that allowed us to get out of our jobs. But along the way, we're here for multifamily, not single family. So along the way, I ended up purchasing a multifamily complex. And when I purchased my first one, the light bulb went off. I was like, holy smokes, I'm doing so much work for these single families. What if I could just buy this building with one roof and one HVAC system and have all of the scale that comes with it? And that's exactly what happened when I purchased this first one. So purchased the first one in 2021. Then at the end of 2021, I was able to leave my job, and that was when I started Full Circle Property Management. I did not do it because I wanted to do property management, believe it or not. I started Full Circle Property Management because we had a few deals that we had bought really well, and we had financed really well, but the property manager wasn't servicing it very well. Sound familiar to anyone? So what happened was I fired the first one, we hired the second. The second one still wasn't cutting it, so I fired them, and then I ended up starting Full Circle Property Management, which we now own and still operate our portfolio with, because no one's going to care about your property like yourself, and because I had a partner on a couple of those deals, and I wasn't going to let him down because of something that I couldn't control. So now we have full control within our portfolio of what we do. All right, so let's talk about, and then in 2022, I will share, so in 2022 was a big year. We bought this 26 townhome deal for $3 million. That deal really shattered my belief, my limiting belief that multifamily wasn't possible or $3 million was too much. How I was able to do that was I joined some coaching programs, and I got surrounded by people that was normal, right? And so when that becomes normal, that becomes possible. And that's what made that possible, which then shattered my limiting belief. After putting just about all the money I had into that deal, I ran out of money, and so then we syndicated this deal, this 36 unit last year, and then we also bought a JV deal with those 12 units over there as well. So I do want to touch on the only limitations that we have are the limitations that we put on ourselves. And so you got to get around people that have a different frame of mind if you want to change your behaviors and get into different kind of things, right? And it's a good thing that you're in this room, because that's exactly, the people that are here have a growth mindset. You don't just come to things on a Tuesday to get hammered. Well, maybe you do, but you all are here to do something better, right? So it's good here. All right, so thanks to Ted. Ted already knocked on who owns multifamily. So let's go to, why is multifamily hard? Right? Why is it this big pie in the sky? Why is it hard to get into? Well, it's because there's two big barriers to entry. The first one is education. It's not easy because you have to learn a lot, right? The other one is money. You got extra zeros, that can be intimidating, right? I didn't have a bunch of money to buy this multifamily. How is that going to work, right? But once you get educated, anybody can do it. So today we're going to cover the education that's out there. I'm going to cover what skill sets do you need to get into multifamily. And so when I talk about education and skill sets, it's very similar. It's like you need tools in your tool belt. You need the knowledge in your head so that you can take action, right? So we're going to cover what skill sets it takes to actually be able to take action in multifamily, and then how to practically gain the knowledge and to succeed in multifamily, and who do you need on your team to crush it in multifamily. All right, and then one thing I do want to share with here, so multifamily is not it's not a pie in the sky as you might think. So the first 23 unit that I bought for $900,000. How much do you think I brought to the table on that deal? $50,000? I brought $25,000 to that deal. And I own 50%. So it's not as far out there as you think. You don't need as much money as you think. You just need to acquire the skill set of how to put together deals, how to finance deals, how to creatively finance deals, and how to finance deals with partners. So with that said, let's talk about the framework. How do I succeed in multifamily real estate? It's really simple. You just buy it right and you operate it right. That's it. Everything can be dumbed down to that. And you may be thinking, okay, when it comes to real estate, there's three things. When it comes to a deal, there's three things. There's the deal itself, so who's finding the deal, who's bringing the money, and then who's got the time to make the deal work. And if you think that real estate's passive, there's the door. Okay, real estate takes a lot of time, or it takes a property manager running it for you. That's really good, right? All right, so today we're going to talk about, and I'm not going to cover all these things, but we're going to talk about in the buy right, we're going to talk about how to analyze deals, we're going to talk about how to find deals, and then we're going to talk a little bit about how to fund deals. On the operating side, again, you got to choose your team, and then you got to have grit, because it does take time and energy to run a real estate portfolio, to run a real estate building. Again, you can have a property manager doing it, but you still should be asset managing the property manager. If you're not holding that property manager accountable, I promise you, you are leaving money on the table. So we're going to talk about Russell. So back in 2019, I was running a Thrasher appointment, and I ended up going to this apartment complex, and I met Russell. Now, I thought that Russell was the maintenance tech, but after going into the unit and ending up having him sign the contract to waterproof the unit, I realized that Russell was the owner. Now, Russell was in his 60s and very rough looking, smoking and cussing and just talking about how much he hated this property. He hated it so much. And I was shocked when he signed the contract, because then I knew he was the owner. But anyways, I was like, well, I was a young lad with, I think, 2 properties at the time. I was living in my duplex and renovating that first burr. I said, Russell, I would like to buy this from you. Do you want to sell it? And he said, absolutely, I do. And I was like, oh, God, what do I do now? Well, I was like, okay, do you have, like, information on it? I don't know how this thing works. Like, it's really big. And, like, how much do you want for it? And he's like, I want $2.4 million. I was like, oh, that's a lot of zeros. But okay, so he ended up sending me over the information. It took him a while to use the email, but he got it over to me. And then I did not know what to do. I looked at these papers and these numbers, and I had no idea how to evaluate this. I didn't know what it was worth. He wanted $2.4 million. That was more than I've ever heard of. That was more than I grew up with. That was more anything, you know? Like, I didn't even know. I knew a little bit about financing, so I knew how to bring 20%, but it's like, still, there was no way. Eventually, Russell starts calling me. He calls me 6 days later. Wyatt, are you going to buy this property? And I'm like, I don't know. Let me get back to you. And then calls me next week. Wyatt, are you going to buy this property? I don't know. Let me get back to you. The third week before he calls, I ended up calling him and just saying, Russell, I'm sorry. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm in over my head. So you should probably just sell this to someone else. And then he said, well, it's too late. I actually already listed this with a broker for $3.2 million, and it's under contract for $3.4 million. So there's my $1 million opportunity that I squandered, thanks to Russell. No, thanks to me, right? So why did I fail? I lacked education. I lacked the skill set to take advantage of the opportunity that came to me. I knew enough to say, hey, maybe this is an opportunity, but I didn't take it to someone who knew, and I didn't have the education instilled in me myself to make $1 million as a 22-year-old. So now we're going to talk about the purpose of that story is because it's really important. You have to know how to underwrite multifamily deals to be able to know whether it's an opportunity or not. If someone came up to you tomorrow and said, I want you to buy my building for $2.4 million, would you know what to do? So that's the importance of underwriting. And that's a skill set that is, it's not easy, and you might fall asleep on me in the next 20 minutes, but it's really, really important, and that's how you pilot a deal. So this is what to know to be able to take action, okay? So in order to educate, to be able to underwrite, let's talk about some practical things that you can do to learn so that you can actually take action and buy multifamily deals, okay? The first thing is to educate. The best way to do it is purchase an analyzer course. I still use Synthesis by Chris Jackson. I would highly, highly recommend Synthesis by Chris Jackson. Okay, there's some books. Brandon Turner and Brian Murray wrote some great books. Volume 1 is great if you don't know much about multifamily at all. Volume 2 is really good even if you are advanced. It just lays out everything in a firm foundation. Would recommend both of those. And then maybe you're sitting here and you're like, man, I actually like making money at my job and I have a family and I don't want to go do all this, Wyatt. Well, that's what we do now is we help people passively invest in everything that we do and make great returns. So I would recommend for you watching and listening to Passive Investing Made Simple by Anthony Vincino. That is another great book, and it's a great option for high income earners that want tax breaks and great write-offs. Yes, Owen?
Why? What's the synthesis? Is that an actual course that you have to take, and then they give you the analyzer tool as a bonus content, or can you actually just get out there and either buy that or just download it?
Yeah, that is a great question. It is $100 for the tool. You get it, you can use it. There you go. Chris Jackson also does a course that is recorded for $500. I definitely bought it. It's a great course, but it's all recorded. You just watch him explaining what to do.
Did you get a lot, now that you know what you know, is it fairly beginner centric, or is it good for people that maybe have a few multifamilies under their belt but want to kind of get, more education in it?
That's a good question. So I'm going to go into how to underwrite for a beginner here in a little bit, which would probably help the beginner. This is more if you're really looking to acquire the skill. This is the best, right? This is like what the pros use. I would recommend it if you're a pro. If you're not looking to become a pro, there's free tools out there, I'm sure.
Great, thanks.
Yeah. All right, and then some podcasts. Jake and Gino is great. Bigger Pockets is good. And then the best real estate advice ever with Joe Fairless is also good. So there you go. And then lastly, it's going to get the reps in. So if you really want to acquire the underwriting skill, it's not easy. Like, it took me 3 to 4 hours a deal to underwrite at first, depending on the complexity of the deal. Now it takes 30 to 45 to 60 minutes, depending on the complexity of the deal. But it still takes a lot to underwrite a big deal, right? An 8 unit might take 5-6 minutes, but larger deals take longer. Either way, you're going to want to learn how to underwrite. And then, so one of our coaches, Bill Ham, great guy, he calls it the race to 80. So it usually takes about 80 underwritten deals to get one good one, right? And so you're thinking about, Brandon Turner talks about funnels, right? As many deals as you can underwrite, the better, because you're getting them into your funnel, and then you're getting better at the skill, and eventually you'll find the deal that you can take action on that may get you out of your job, if that's what you choose. All right, so let's talk about when you're analyzing a multifamily deal. There are 3 approaches that it goes by when you're evaluating a deal. So again, if someone walked up to you tomorrow and says, I want to sell my apartment complex for $2.4 million, let's talk about how would you evaluate it. I guess before does anyone know the 3 approaches that they are evaluated on? Nice. Nice work, Neil. That guy's got a great shirt on, by the way, if you haven't seen it. So cost approach, comparable sales approach, and income approach. Cost approach, what does it take to rebuild? Comparable sales approach, what are other things selling for? And income approach, how much money does this make me when I buy it? Okay, so let's talk about the basics. Using the income, I'm only going to talk about the income approach because multifamily is evaluated a little bit differently than single family. Majority of multifamily owners, or all of multifamily owners, are bought based off how much money is this going to make me. You're buying a business, you're not buying a single family house that my neighbor sold for XYZ, and so now it's worth this. Okay? It's very heavily weighted on the income approach. And so when you're buying a business, you got to know how much money is it going to make me, right? So we're going to go over just how to evaluate based off the income approach. And hopefully I don't lose too many people here, but feel free to ask questions, okay? So the first thing that you got to do is you got to do how much income does this building produce minus the expenses. That is the net operating income, okay? That is how much money this thing's going to make. Once you know how much money this thing's going to make, then you divide that by what's called the cap rate. The cap rate stands for capitalization rate, and it's what assets are trading for in the market. If you don't know what it is, you can ask brokers, you can ask other investors, you can ask other appraisers, you can ask other bankers. They all know what things are trading for in the market roughly. Okay? So if you take the net operating income divided by the cap rate, that equals the asset's value. We're going to go over just a quick example. You guys know what income means, you guys know what operating expenses means, and then the cap rate is what things are currently trading for. So if you find a Russell and he comes up to you, you take the net operating income divided by the cap rate, that equals the asset's value. So if Russell comes up to you tomorrow and says, I want you to buy my building for $2.4 million, and he tells you that the net operating income is $60,000, and you know that the cap rate is a 6.5% cap rate for that asset, what is that asset's value worth? You take the net operating income divided by the cap rate, that equals the asset's value. Any guesses? I lost everyone. This is going to be a long night. So, yep, the NOI, the net operating income, bingo, winner to you. So you do not buy that deal if Russell wants $2.4 million for it. But yeah, good job. So going back to it, you take $60,000 divided by 0.065, that's 6.5%, that gets you to the asset's value. Now that's what's called back of napkin underwriting. That's just the quick and dirty. But if you need to know, because Russell is going to sell this for $1 million more, now you know. All right, so we talked about where to find a cap rate. Does anyone have any questions on any of what I just covered?
So I was looking at one the other day, and they gave me the rent roll, but there was no expenses provided. So what do you do with that?
That is a great question, and that happens when you're dealing with mom and pops because they don't have great books. If that happens, a rule of thumb expense ratio, if you want to be on the safe side, is 50%. 50. If you want to be more on the aggressive side, it's 40%. So if it's ran really, really well, you could lean more towards the 40%. If it's ran really, really bad, lean more towards the 50% of the total income. So he asked 50% of what? So if a seller comes up to you tomorrow and all they give you is the rent roll, you would take how much money is this bringing in, and then you take that rent roll times 12 for the whole year, right? That would give you your income. And then if they didn't give you anything else to figure out your expenses, you would just take the income and divide it by 2. That's 50%, right? That's a 50% expense ratio. That would give you your net operating income. And then you just take that net operating income, divide that by the cap rate, that gets you the rough asset value. Those are quick and dirty numbers. I would not buy on that, but that gives you an idea when you're talking to people. That's how you can quickly know if you should go into an in-depth underwriting or not on that. So if Russell's asking $2.4 million and your net operating income is 60, you should probably just move on with your life, right? But if your net operating income is 1 million, you should buy that deal immediately. So if you want to get serious about multifamily, you really need to decide your buy right criteria, because there's a lot of people trying to sell things out there. That doesn't mean it's the right deal, and that also may not mean it's the right deal for you. So you need to decide, where are you going to buy things, how many are you looking for, and what kind of vintage. Once you have that, you can tell whoever you're working with or going after, you can sort through all the other stuff, right? Because you don't want to underwrite a 200 unit. That's going to take you a long time to do if you're not capable of doing it, or if you're not looking for one, right? You also don't want to underwrite in North Omaha if you're not buying there, right? Same thing. So an example of ours, so at Full Circle Real Estate, we buy underperforming multifamily assets between 5 to 200 units located within Omaha, Lincoln, or Council Bluffs. We prefer assets that are 1980s or newer and not located within North Omaha. All right, so now that you guys got the quick and dirty underwriting, who wants to do a full underwrite? Here we go. Well, I feel bad for the people in the back, but you chose to sit back there, so that's on you. Here we go. I'll try to go a little quick. I don't want to lose everyone. But the first thing that you do, if someone asks you if you want to buy a multifamily building, the first thing you got to do is you got to get the documents. The documents are a rent roll, so you got to know how much they're making. And then if you can, get a trailing 12. That is 12 months of expenses. So that way you can know how much you should budget for your expenses when you buy it. Okay? You're going to need an analyzer tool, or you could be a whiz at Excel like Sean, but not everyone's Sean. So there you go. You got to be clear about what you're looking for. Again, this is to save you time. Like, just sort through all the bull crap and only look at deals that you're looking for and spend your time on that. We're all busy enough. Figure out what you want and go after it. All right, so this is a JV deal I did last year. It's 2 6-unit buildings in Lincoln. And we're just going to do a quick and dirty underwrite on it so you guys can see just a little bit about what I'm talking about and why I took action on this deal. And hopefully so that you can take action when you get a deal coming on your plate. And then we'll get into how to get deals, okay? So, location. The first thing you got to decide is location. Where are you going to be buying deals? What city, and then where within the city are you looking for deals? The more specific you get, the more you'll know exactly what to look for. Few things, is it desirable or in the path of progress? The more you can find that, the better. The other thing you got to look at is the rent affordability relative to income. We have a rental standard of 3 times the monthly rent must be made for any tenants. So the last thing I want to do is jack up rents in a tenant class that can't afford to pay that rent. Guess how well that's going to go, okay? And in this time of the economy, that's a really important thing to keep in mind, because it's getting a little tougher. Leasing isn't like it was. Population growth, we want to see the population increasing, not decreasing, not rocket science. We're doing okay in Nebraska. We're not Florida, we're not Texas, but we're pretty steady Eddie. And then unemployment, we want to see job growth, right? And I will say in Lincoln and Omaha, we are phenomenal for jobs and for unemployment. All right. So the first thing that we looked at for this Lincoln deal was this unit was in Lincoln, and I wanted to look at the rent affordability for Lincoln. So these are mostly 2-bedroom units, and the reason why that's important is because you got to look at, are families living in there, or are they mostly a sole person? Because if a sole person is in there, you got to look at the average median income in that state, which the average median income in Lincoln, I believe, is $31,000. Okay. But if a family's living there, then the average median income is $60,000. Big difference, right? Big difference for affordability. And so thankfully, most of these are 2 bedrooms, and so we can afford to raise the rents. So we are targeting the rents for $1,200. If I want to rent this building for $1,200, I take the median income, I divide that by 12, and then I check to see if that $5,213 is going to be affordable compared to what I'm charging for rent. And if I'm charging $1,200 for rent times 3, that's $3,600, and I get the green light. Make sense? So now it's affordable. All right, green light. Again, unit breakdown matters. Yes, sir. Oh, I guess, yeah. He said gross income or net income. What are you looking at, gross income or net income? So we are looking at net income on our tenants. So that is after taxes, how much money are they taking home? We don't want to be evicting people for placing people that shouldn't have been in there in the first place. Good question.
This episode is brought to you by JM Real Estate Capital.
Hi, it's Rob, JM Real Estate Capital. We're the money guys that you need to know for all your real estate investments. Talk to us. We can do what your local bank can't or won't do. We don't have millions, we have trillions with a T to lend. 844 we close, or go online, jmrecapital.com. That's jmrecapital.com. JM Real Estate Capital, smart solutions for the real estate investor.
All right, the next thing is population growth. How do you do this? You Google it. It's not rocket science. So what is the population growth of X, Y, and Z city? I'm sure a lot of you are probably going to be buying here in Omaha. Omaha's doing good. Lincoln's doing good. You're good. Unemployment, why are we looking at this? Again, job growth, economic. We want to look at the drivers. Again, Omaha and Lincoln, very, very good recession-resistant economies as well. So I will say with where we're at in the macroeconomic scale of things, we're in a good spot. Like, this is a good place to be buying real estate minus the taxes. All right, so now let's say someone comes up to you, you have the rent roll, you have the T12. Now you're like, how in the world am I supposed to underwrite this deal? I still don't know how I'm going to buy it, right? So now we got to look at the rent roll, and we got to see, is there an opportunity for us to make money, right? Who likes making money? All right. So the first thing that we look at, one of the easiest ways to increase your income is to increase your rent. Makes sense? Not rocket science, right? So when I saw a rent roll of our average rent at $500 and $450, when other comps are at $1,200, I got pretty happy, right? That's a good thing. So check on the rent comps, check on the rent affordability. Now I just plug it into the tool. That simple. And so these are a few things that I plug into the tool that I'm going to show you, and I'll, again, not make it too long because I don't want to bore some of you, but if you're looking to buy multifamily, you really got to know this, right? So the first thing we look at is average rents. We want to make sure that is going up. So the average rents are going up. The average rents are doubling, which don't expect that on every deal, but it was a great deal. And then we look at the, I'm looking at the sellers. These are the sellers' actual numbers. So these are the sellers' operating expenses. So I looked at their operating income minus their expenses. That's their net operating income at the bottom, right? The next thing that you got to do is put it into the underwrite. So this is what the pro forma looks like. And within this pro forma, I'm taking rents from, on average, $492 to the first year, $738 to the second year, $1,033. So we are increasing income, right? Within that, we got to look at a few other things. We got to look at taxes. And this is one, if you don't listen to anything I say, just listen to this, okay? This will save a lot of you a lot of money and a lot of bad deals. When you go to buy a deal, they're going to increase the taxes on you, usually. So, on your underwriting, you may be looking at taxes of, initially it was $12,000. And so I bought this after it was assessed. So it's going to be $12,000 year one. But year two, I'm planning on it jumping up to what it's assessed at times the mill rate, $16,000. Right? And if you don't plan that in your underwriting, that could really hurt you because a cash flowing deal isn't cash flowing anymore. And now the macroeconomics change and it's harder to rent. Now you're not getting as much as you think. It can really put you in a bad spot. So this is a time to be really careful about buying multifamily, but a time that you can still take action if you know what you're doing. All right. Now that I dropped the tax bomb, and I'll also say if you don't know how to find the tax value, taxes are assessed at use whatever you sold it for and then times the mill rate. If you don't know what the mill rate is, go on the county assessor and see what the mill rate is for that property. You can then take that and you can find it on the county assessor. All right, moving on, then that leads us to our net operating income. You can see that year one, the seller was actually making $39,000 a year on this property, and I'm only gonna make $25,000 a year on this property. I must be an idiot. That's because we're stabilizing the property. I put in 40% of vacancy while we're flipping it, right? We're renovating the units, and we don't just raise rents $500, we renovate the units to make that happen. But then year two, you can see our net operating income now is $89,000, which is a big difference. And then you take that divided by the cap rate, that's a massive increase in value. And then what that allows us to do is refinance our money out of it back to the BRRRR strategy, right? Now all the money we put in 2 years we get back out, and now we hold this deal forever and enjoy all of the tax write-offs and everything else that comes with it, cash flow as well. One other thing to not forget is CapEx. Does anyone know what CapEx is in here, what that stands for? Yes, Andrea does. Okay, perfect. Capital expenditures. So capital expenditures are one-time expenses. If you're gonna remodel a unit, that's a one-time expense, right? So you gotta plan, just like if you were flipping a house, you know your ARV minus repairs. You got to plan what those repairs are in multifamily as well, because you have 36 furnaces, you have 36 ACs, right? Those are going to go out at some point if you plan on holding this for 10 years, for 30 years, right? You got to plan that. That's going to happen. And insurance doesn't cover that like a roof, right? And if the roof is not good, you may have to be doing the roof too. So you got to know what you're going into, okay? Don't forget furnaces and ACs. That is huge. All right, the last couple things, when you're buying a multifamily deal, don't forget to underwrite closing costs. So there are loan origination fees. I know there's some lenders in here. Shout out to Shane. Shane is pretty good from Northwest back there. Not as bad as origination fees is what I put in here. So talk to him if you're looking for a lender. And then there's, if you're doing a survey, there's survey costs, there's legal documents that need to be set up. So there are costs associated with buying a multifamily building. It's not just the down payment. You don't just bring the down payment. You bring the down payment, you bring your CapEx, and you bring your closing costs. All right, and then you finally get to the pro forma page, and hopefully it looks all green and good, but for 80 deals it probably won't. But the one that it does, it looks great. So the last thing you got to decide is your financing. And financing can make or break a deal, and especially now with what's going on, right? So for this deal specifically, we did 25% loan to cost. What that means is we brought 25% down, but then the bank financed 75% of the purchase and the rehab, right? So that helped us. We didn't have to bring as much money ultimately when it came, because we didn't have to bring the money for the rehab. Okay? That is one way to do it. Then you got to look at your refi and exit. So if for us, we buy our whole strategy, I just take the BRRRR strategy and I moved it into multifamily. And I do the same thing for our passive investors. Like they all get in the BRRRR strategy. So when you plan on buying something, some people just buy things and hold it, and that's great, right? Good for you guys. I am very much about infinite returns. I love infinite returns. And so I look at buying deals, increasing the value with value add, refinancing our money out, and then holding that deal for life. That's what I like to do. So different strokes for different folks, but if you're going to be doing a refi, you got to be budgeting a refi, how you're going to do it, what's the debt going to look like for that, what's the purchase price, and then ultimately what your returns are on that deal. I know it's really hard to see over there, but the returns on this deal, it's 23% IRR and a 24.6% averaged annualized return. Now, does anybody know the difference between IRR and averaged annualized return? IRR stands for internal rate of return. And the difference between the two is important when you're dealing with true investors. And I think all of us in this room are true investors, but when you're talking about like it's really important because when you're raising money, they care about what is my money going to do and when is it going to get back to me. So IRR, internal rate of return, takes into the account the time value of money. Would you rather have $50,000 today or $50,000 10 years from now? So it's really important, when are you doing the refinance or when are you selling this asset? That affects the internal return of when you get this money back, which then it can ultimately be deployed back into the field and make you more money. All right, question? Correct, yeah, so the question was, when you're talking about IRR, does this have a time frame on it? So the internal rate of return has a time frame built into it. And that's why you really need a calculator, because I'm not smart enough to do that. I don't know, maybe Sean is. No, okay. But you really need a calculator to calculate that for you. You can calculate the averaged annualized return, that's just the math. But that doesn't take into account the time value of money. Good question, yeah. Okay, so sample investor return on this deal. The reason why we love doing the deals that we do is if you put in $200,000 on this deal, man, that's tough to see for you guys. I'm just gonna read it. So if they put in $200,000 on the deal, the first year we're not making any money, it's a $13,000 loss. The second year we're making $14,000, and then the third year we're refinancing all of the $200,000 back. We're also getting about $50,000 on top of the refi if everything goes according to plan, and then we hold it forever, and the investor gets $2,500 a year, $3,600, $4,200, and it just grows in perpetuity as we hold that building and allow rents to keep going up while our debt remains the same. And that's why we love multifamily real estate. Okay, hopefully I didn't bore all of you guys with going super detailed, but again, it's really important to know how to underwrite. The purpose of it is you got to know your renovations, know your market, create your business plan, and then stabilize it. So there you go. Now you know, go take action, huh? All right. We're going to move on to how to find deals, which might be a little bit more exciting for some of you. Does anyone have any questions before I move into that? Yes, sir. Are there any other advantages to doing a loan-to-cost purchase upfront? It just depends on what your business plan is for the deal. In regards to market volatility, okay, that's a good specific question. So I'll answer the first one. The first one is, if you are buying a stabilized deal, there's no reason to do loan to cost because there's no renovations, right? If you plan on doing a lot of renovations to improve the asset value, then I would look at getting a loan to cost loan because it's going to mean less money out of your pocket. Now, in regards to market volatility, there's two different kinds of loans. There's what's called bridge debt, and that is variable rate debt, which is not what you want right now. And it is short-term debt. So it means it needs to be paid back 6 months, a year, 2 years. That's bridge debt. I like to get temp to perm debt. So that means it's a loan that's a bridge loan, but it's at a 5-year debt. So the shortest debt that I get is 5 years. 5 years gives me a lot of time to maneuver in whatever's going on in that market cycle to be able to refi, take a second, or sell the property if something happens. The last thing you want to do is do bridge debt and then have the interest rates rise and then have something go wrong on the project. Now you're caught with your pants down and you're on the hook for a lot of money.
I got two questions for you. One, when it comes, you were talking about a true investor. So how often do you change your structure when it comes to funding deals? Primarily the difference between a true investor who stays in the deal long term or a general partner versus a limited partner, someone who's in it for a certain amount of time and then you pay them out, you pay them their return and then just the general partners are getting a return on that.
Good question. How we do it is we do this massive value add, right? And I think what you're talking about is, okay, you do this big refi, do you pay off all your partners and then you keep the deal forever? That's actually not how I do it. So if you partner with me, you're in it for life. Like, I take your money, we go do an awesome deal, you get your money back, and then we both hold the deal. I don't just give you a set return. Like, you're enjoying the equity with me as well as everything else.
Okay. And then the second question for you is, obviously, I think the interest rates, everybody has their projection on it, but I don't think it's going to be as big of a slope as it's been in the last year and a half or so. But when it comes to situations like that, and your plan is to refinance in 2 years, but say something happens in the macroeconomic cycle where that doesn't work out, how do you approach that when it comes to investors who have an expectation to get their money back, and how do you approach that conversation in that situation?
Great question. Well, number one, it comes with setting good expectations. So our investors know that anything can happen, right? And I'm going to do my best with my management company to do everything we absolutely can. With that said, how are you doing value add deals in a rising interest rate environment is a great question. So how we are doing them is not by refinancing. I am not going to refinance out of 5% interest into 7.5% debt. That makes no sense, right? But I am going to continue to do the value add, and when the time comes, what we do is we keep the 5% debt in place. We then take a second out on the property to capture the equity that we've created, pay our investors back. That second may be at 7.5%. But guess what? The blended rate between the two is like 5.3 because the majority of the debt is from the purchase at 5% or whatever it was back when, right? So you got to work with a bank that will take a second, but that's how we do it. Long story short, don't get stuck in analysis paralysis. If you're not confident with underwriting, go get coaching, go get help. There's people out there that will help you. There are plenty of people out there. And a good rule of thumb is if you're going to go buy a deal, especially an expensive deal, get multiple sets of eyes on it. Sean and I are not buying anything without us both underwriting it and usually at least one more set of eyes on it, just to double check and make sure that we are doing the right thing and not missing anything. And not much gets by that guy, I'll tell you that much.
Hey, all right, I had a question for you, if that's all right, back here.
Yep.
Let's say you have a property that you come across and it's either A, completely vacant, or B, the owner is such a dipshit that they can't give you anything close to what actual rents or expenses or anything else should be. Or maybe they don't even file their own taxes. Like, how do you arrive at underwriting a deal that might be a smoking deal, but you have none of the information that you need?
That is tough, but if you're in that scenario, what I would do is just go door knock, meet the tenants, figure out what they're renting things for, and then build off my pro forma by just knowing what the rents are. I can call the utility company to figure out what the expenses are. I can see what the taxes are on the county assessor. I run a property management company, so I can see what operating costs are. I know a general rule of thumb, so I can just back all my expenses by just knowing, okay, what are they renting for currently, and what can I get them to, and then backtrack all my expenses. Yeah, that's a tough one. Go find someone who knows, or just throw it out there and hope it's good. There you go. So we're done talking about analyzing. Analyzing is great. Now let's talk about finding. I talked about analyzing first because you got to know how to analyze the deal if you find it. Or someone on your team or someone needs to know how to analyze it. Because you can find a smoking deal, but if you don't know what to do with it, cool. All right? So the first way to find deals are brokers on market. Next way is brokers off market, direct to seller, wholesalers, and your personal network. Those are the 5 buckets I've broken it into, and I have bought every single one. So I'll share with you how to do that. The first one is brokers on market. I think we all know how to do this, right? Talk to a broker and go buy something on market. There is a difference between commercial listings and residential listings, right? So the difference, I would say, usually when a broker lists a commercial property, you're not usually working with a buyer's agent, usually. Usually it's sophisticated investors that's working with a broker, and then that broker seller pays the fees and you're working directly with that broker, usually. On smaller multifamily deals, your agent might be able to find them for you, and there's nothing wrong with using agents. If they find you the deal, they're doing their work, pay them their commission. All right. The advantage is it's an easier barrier to entry. They're doing the work for you. They bring in deals right to you. There you go. The disadvantage is obviously there's a ton of competition. We all know buying on market is not the greatest way to find the greatest deal, but it's a way to get deals. And then the other thing is usually it's the seller's broker. So they're looking out for the best interest of their client, which means their pro forma, what the broker is giving you, is going to be at the client's best intention. So you're going to have to sift through the data he shows you and, take it for what you will. All right. Finding deals, brokers off market. This is a great way to find deals. Most deals are done off market. Does anyone know why? Less competition, yeah. What? Less market? Networking, yeah, absolutely. Networking. Relationships, yeah, same thing, yep. So absolutely. The reason why is because brokers are human. They are lazy as well, right? Brokers are well connected. They have buyers that can buy. When a deal comes up to them, it's very easy for them to take it to their well-known buyer and say, hey, do you want this? Now they don't have to put together all of the documents and put it on the market and deal with all of us calling them. Right? So relationships and networking, this is a huge one to find good deals. All right, so the advantage to this is there's less competition. The disadvantage is it's really hard to break into the good old boys club. We're still doing it. It's not easy. But the best way to do it is coffees and lunches. Just start to network with brokers, start to build those relationships. I found the most success by building relationships with younger brokers. Because the older brokers, they've got their guys. They have got their guys. The younger guys are still hungry. They're hustling. And if they stick around for a while, they're going to be the older guys that have the deals, and you might be the older guy that's their guy. Or woman. There you go. Yeah. Okay. Jeez. Ted and I are not PC here. All right. Direct to seller, something that I'm very passionate about. The best way to find deals, one of the best ways. It's very time intensive. We maybe have all heard direct to seller. It is not easy. You're the one going out there trying to network with the seller and trying to make a deal happen, right? How do we do it? So here's the quick and dirty. You download the data from CoStar. You pull the data from the county assessor and cross-reference it. This is what we do. Organize the data into a CRM, remove any duplicates. Sean, this is all Sean, by the way. create a geographic map of the data and filter out any properties that don't fit within your criteria. Don't ask me how to do that, that's all Sean. Hook up a separate calling and texting app to Podio. We use Podio for our CRM. We use Smart for our texting and calling. We then call and text sellers. We build relationships. We do it consistently, filling the funnel. And then we also send postcards. So some of you may have gotten my postcards from a long time ago when I was buying 50 houses. And then lastly, and not least, you answer the calls and texts from all of the work that you do. You got to answer the calls, you got to be consistent with it, you got to build relationships, and you got to add value to people. So that is the quick and dirty of direct to seller. Now, moving on to wholesalers, you shady people. They still do exist, and I have bought in several deals from wholesalers, and I still love wholesalers. This is very similar to brokers off market. It's just about relationships. Why would a wholesaler work with you instead of someone else? If they know you can close, then it's a pretty good reason, right? And if they know you're willing to pay a good amount, but still keep their fee in, and they're easy to work with, right? If you know you can close, you know you're easy to work with, I don't care. I hope you make $1 million on the wholesale fee, but just bring the deal over, right? So be easy to work with. Their advantages is they do all of the direct to seller for you. So you don't have to find a Sean and do all that stuff. There's less competition in the market when you're doing that, right? The disadvantage is there is still competition because you're still bidding against other people on that wholesaler's list. And there's less margin than direct to seller. All right. And your personal network. So this is actually your best route. Okay. This is who are you meeting with every day? Who do you know? This is going to be your best opportunity. Where is your Russell? Okay. I had multiple Russells. I bought my first 23 unit from a connection like this. So the advantages, there is a lot less competition. Your network may not be shopping it. You may just be the only buyer. If you know what to do, it's a huge opportunity. Usually, if they know you, you have a relationship. So if you have the relationship and you know how to creatively structure deals, it's more likely you can get into that deal with a lot less money. And it might be better for them too. The 23 unit that I bought, we did it seller finance. They carried the note for 90% of that property. And why would they do that? Because they didn't want the tax burden. So they didn't want to receive all the taxes year one. We spread out the taxes for them, and we paid them interest. So they're getting paid incrementally every year, and they don't have to deal with the management, right? So it was a huge win-win for both parties. And those deals happen within your network. There are deals out there, there's Russells out there, I promise. Disadvantages is there are few and far between, so it's not every day you're gonna run into a Russell, but again, they're great. And then again, you have to be educated. You have to have the skill set to know to take action when that opportunity comes so you don't lose $1 million. All right, so how do we find opportunities within our network? The best way is just have your elevator pitch ready. What do? You might be a foundation salesman, but guess what? I also buy real estate. When people ask me what I did, I say I work for Thrasher and I also buy real estate. Oh, really? Tell me more about that. There you go. The door's open. Right? You'll never know if you identify as a real estate investor, if you want to retire from real estate, you got to bring it up in the conversation. People got to know what you do for these opportunities to come up to you. You got to step out of your comfort zone. If you know someone in your network that owns multifamily that may be interested in an offer, you got to ask them. Usually they're not just going to come up to you and say, I want to sell this, right? You got to ask them. Have the confidence, the cojones to do it. And then lastly, again, you got to build the skills to capitalize on the opportunity or have a partner with someone who does know what to do so that you can learn along the way and team up and do it. It's always good to team up. If you don't know what you're doing, multifamily can be a risky game, but the way to lower your risk is to team up with somebody who's been there and done that so that they can de-risk what you're doing and you can learn a whole lot quicker. Part of a watermelon is worth a whole lot more than a grape. So good question. The question was, how do you communicate your vision? How do you tell someone what it is and can you share your vision? So how I did it was I said, I buy houses and I renovate them and I refinance them and I hold them forever. And I'm looking to build financial freedom. That was how I did it when I was working in my job, right? I'm looking to retire early through real estate. Now, my vision is we will own over 1,500 units within the next 8 years. That is what we're building. It's all going to be self-managed by Full Circle Property Management. Like, we are building a machine to grow about 150 to 300 units a year. So that's now what I communicate within my vision. All right, so you got some decisions to make. Now that you know all this, you can just sit on it and have a good time tonight, and thanks for coming out. But now that you know this, now you have some decisions, right? So who on your team is going to know and learn how to underwrite? Who is going to know? Or do you need to bring someone on, or do you need to partner with somebody who does? Right? That's the first thing you got to know. The next one you got to know is, how are you going to source deals? How, if you truly want to buy multifamily, how are you going to underwrite it? How are you going to source it? Once you decide that, then you can start taking your action steps on it. The last one is, what plan of action do you need to take? So what action steps do I need to take, and what lead measures do I need to focus on? If I'm just going to go get deals, then I need to go talk to 3 wholesalers next week, and I need to make a commitment to talking to 1 new broker a week. Right? That's an actionable step to get better. Or if I know how to underwrite, I'm going to go do something how to underwrite. All right, and then lastly, get connected. So if you do want to passively invest or learn more about what that looks like, my website is www.fc, as in full circle, equitypartners.com. On there you'll see some previous deals, you'll see what we stand for. There will be a button you can schedule a call with me directly. If you're local, we can do it together. My Instagram is Wyatt Buys Buildings, and then I post a lot on Facebook, so yeah, feel free to add me. And with that, I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. Hope you found it helpful, and thank you.